All right, let's review lesson 3, which is spicing up things using lists. And lists are going to be things that incorporate either numbered or lettered lists or bullets. So we have two types of lists that are the most common, and then we have one that's kind of rare. One of those is the UL, and UL stands for unordered list. Now, if you're going to put a heading above the list, the heading does not go in the list. So my heading would go here. So here is an unordered list. Unordered lists have no particular order. So that's why they're, bullets. So you put the UL in, and what the UL actually does is it scoots the list in. So if I run this right now, it's actually going to not have any bullets, but it is scooted in. So what you have to do then is indicate where you want the bullets to be. Each bullet in a list is called a list item, or an LI. So we have the first LI, and then we have the second LI. And those have opening and closing for each line. So that's an unordered list. An ordered list, I'm just going to copy and paste for the sake of time, is going to be a list that has a specific order, and it's represented by OL. Otherwise, it's the same thing. LI when you want the number or letter, and then turn it off at the end of the line, like so. Now, you can have ordered lists that have different numbers or different characters. So, for instance, let's say that this first one is dogs and the second one is cats. And then we want to list underneath cats of some sort of, let's say, lettered list instead of a 1 and a 2. So this is nesting a list. So we can put a list inside of a list. So I'm going to, after that LI, kind of right in here in the middle of all this, and I'm going to tab it over just so you can kind of visualize it better. I'm going to tab it over, and now I'm putting an unordered list here. And so cats, let's see, cats meow, and cats shed, and cats scratch. I just put them all on one line so you can see it better. Then we turn it off. So this list is technically underneath the cat bullet, right? So after the cat bullet, which is going to be this one, now we have a little list underneath that list. So it's within the OL, there is a UL. So that's called nesting a list. Now you can also change this so that instead of it being an OL, or rather the 1 period 2 period, which is your normal numbered list, you can set it with a type attribute. That's type equals, and then inside your quotation marks in this attribute, you can put what you want the type to be. So for instance, if I said capital A and I run it, it would be an ABC list. If I say lowercase a and I run it, it's going to be a lower alphabet list. If I say Roman numeral I and run it, it's going to be a Roman numeral list. So you have all your different options in there. The default, of course, is 1 period, 2. You never type in the numbers and the periods or the letters and the periods. It's automatically going to be in there for you. Now, later on, we'll learn how to do different bullets. But for now, you're going to have the default bullet, which is a filled in bullet. We call that a disk bullet. So unordered lists automatically have what are called disk bullets. Now, later on, you'll learn how to create different types of bullets. Notice, though, a nested unordered list turns into what we call circle bullets. They're not filled in, circle bullets. Okay? So deeper into a nested list, it's automatically going to be that. And later on, you'll learn how to make those different. The other type of list mentioned in this chapter is called a description list. It's also called a definition list. I kind of call it either of those two, just depends on what you're reading. I'm going to put that list down here. They're kind of hard to explain. They're more like vocabulary word type lists. So it really doesn't look like a list. There's no bullets, there's no numbers, there's no anything. It's kind of like having a paragraph and then a block quote, except there's no space between anything. So, for instance, if I have a definition or a description list and I put the main tags in there, the DLs, instead of LIs, we have two parts. We have the DT, which stands for the definition term. So we're sticking with, let's say, holidays or months or something. Let's say fall. If I have fall as my term, then I might have a description to go along with fall. Like, so it'd be a DD, which is the definition's definition, or the description definition, or however you want to look at that. And I might say, this is the season of for football and pumpkins, and then turn it off. Okay. And then we can have our next term. So we'll say summer, and then the definition or the description for summer. This is when you go to the lake, get sun and no school or whatever. Okay. Now when I run it, like I said before, it kind of looks like a normal paragraph and then a block quote paragraph, except it's all in one list. So it's all on the next line. There's no gaps between these lines. Because if I turned a paragraph off, there would be a gap. And notice if I get it to where it's more than one line, this really does look like a block quote. It's just there is no gap above it and no gap below it. So, I don't honestly use these lists really ever. But if you were wanting to have some sort of little paragraph and then something off to the side like that indented, that's what that would be for. Okay, the other thing mentioned in this chapter are HTML entity codes. On the home page of our class, if you scroll down to resources, way down here, you'll find a link someplace for entity codes. In emojis and so forth, you can enter using some of these types of codes. So here's the standard entities codes page. And this is going to give you, like, if I wanted a dollar sign. Well, a dollar sign we can use just straight on the keyboard. But a cent sign, we can't necessarily. So you could go in here and find the code for a cent. It's ampersand, the word cent, and a semicolon. Now, all of these are going to start with an ampersand and end in a semicolon. Okay, notice that when I put my mouse over them. Now, some of these have multiple ways you can do it. Like this little not one, I can use the ampersand, not, and a semicolon, or there's what we call the X version, which has an X in it, or there's another version that's just all numbers. So it just depends on what you're looking for. If I want to do a paragraph symbol, there's that paragraph symbol, or the upside down question mark, an inverted question mark is an iQuest. So rather simple to use them in REPL. They're not in tags, so they're not like everything else. They're just kind of out there. So let's say I want to use the cent sign next to dogs here. It's ampersand, cent, and then semicolon. And notice you'll see different ones pop up on here. But there it is. And it doesn't really look fancy at all. You can't tell it's code. But if you look here, I have that code. Or if I wanted to do the inverted question mark, it was ampersand I quest, I think, semicolon. And then we would have that inverted question mark. Or pretty common is the copyright symbol, which is ampersand copy and then that semicolon. And that would put that right next to my number and give me the copyright symbol. Or but next to my name, if I want to put a heart, you can see it's hearts. Again, starting with an ampersand and ending with a semicolon. So that's kind of fun. Entity codes are nice for sort of dressing things up. There's several listed in your book and a couple of links to various places where you can find them in the book too. Probably the most exciting page to find them is the TopTal page, and it's also in your book listed there. TopTal.com, designers, HTML arrows. And you can see here they have a really nice selection of these. And they're in categories up at the top. You can set arrows, currency, letters, math, numbers, punctuation, symbols, all of those in here. So that's kind of a good one for your arrows and all that. Notice arrows, it's like Left arrow is LR, and up arrow is UR, and RR. Anyway, you get the gist of it. The arrows are actually pretty easy to remember. Copyright copy, the registered symbol is reg, the trademark symbol is trade. So some of these are rather, they make sense, and then some of them don't, like Celsius and Fahrenheit, really weird codes. There's the hex code, which are the ones that have an X in them, and then the HTML codes, which are just straight up numbers. But again, none of these go in brackets. So they're not codes like everything else. The entity codes are just put straight on the page, always starting with an ampersand, always ending with a semicolon. And that's just basically a rundown of this part of our chapter. It's a rather short chapter. It's just the 3 different types of lists and the entity codes.